Luffy has always had some kind of drawback with his power-ups. I feel like I need to address this at the very beginning so people don't misinterpret the point of the video, because I really want to have an honest conversation. Gear 2 was such a drastic boost in strength for pre-time skip Luffy, it was said to cut his lifespan every time he used it. Gear 3 also increased his raw strength, but every time he was finished using it, he turned into a little munchkin man. And Gear 4 burned through his stamina so much that he needed 10 whole minutes of rest before being able to jump back into the fight. So when looking back at all this, I genuinely do understand how people feel when they ask, what's even the big deal with Gear 5's stamina issue? Even more so when we remember that this is Luffy's awakening, which, as we know, awakenings do cost a lot of stamina. Well, I can't speak for everyone in the community, obviously, but in my opinion, I personally can't get behind the stamina issue specifically for Gear 5, because it really takes the spark out of a lot of Luffy's fights, and we are running out of time to address this issue properly. For the first point, I am so tired of seeing Luffy constantly need help or needing a recharge in his battles. Not that it isn't nice to know he has allies that will support him, but is it really hard to ask for Luffy to defeat a strong character without having some extra external factors in play? Like, I'm not moved by Luffy beating Lucci in their second round, for example, because we all know by this point in time, Luffy was leagues above him. Seeing Luffy bully weaker people can be fun sometimes, sure, but it's not as impactful as seeing him overcome a powerful opponent on his own. That's honestly what makes their first round way more entertaining in comparison, and it's still one of the best fights in the story. But we really don't get to see that anymore, because if Luffy is fighting another top tier, it's pretty much guaranteed currently in the story that he's gonna burn out at some point and need food. We've seen it happen with Kizaru, the Gurusei, and now Imu post Wano, and I'm gonna get to Imu in a second, but specifically with Kizaru, it is so frustrating having this man get help from a literal enemy that had his own agenda on that island. It's not hate towards Luffy or slander or being disingenuous, like guys, it was confirmed in an SBS. Kizaru helped Luffy by giving him the food to replenish his strength. Sanji and Frankie couldn't move, they only moved after Kuma punched Saturn, and by then, the food was already delivered to Luffy. Pizza Kizaru doesn't happen without Kizaru, but by proxy, this really shows us that if Luffy cannot completely put down his opponent before he burns out, he's a sitting duck left vulnerable to his enemies. And for a top tier, for a big bad Yonko, that's lame. I'm sorry, Luffy is always allowed to have this excuse, but if we did this with any other Yonko or Admiral, best believe they would be slandered into oblivion because of how bad it makes them as a supposed big threat or challenge in the story. People always want to bring up the heart restart that happened with Kaido, but he has yet to ever do that again. The food by this point is way more consistent than seeing the heart restart happen that one singular time. If Luffy can just force himself back into Gear 5 without food, then why didn't he do it after gassing out with Kizaru? Bonnie and the rest of his friends were about to die. Why not during the battle against the Gurusei? He needed food twice during that battle. And why not now that Imu in the flesh has touched down in Elbaf? Luffy says it himself, he doesn't feel like he can win without a full stomach. The heart restart is not something we can just rely on in discussions anymore, unless he does it against Imu in a few chapters, which is entirely possible, I'm not denying that. But then it brings into question, why didn't he do it in the other situations when his friends were in danger? The Gear 5 stamina issue just diminishes Luffy's battles with these major threats, because you can't really say with an honest heart that he can currently take out these threats before he burns out, because he has yet to demonstrate that he can actually do that after leaving Wano. Like, come on guys, he threw one singular attack at Imu's black blob form and he was done. Not even Imu himself. If you put Luffy in an isolated environment with no external help or factors that would interfere in the battle, his chances of gassing out before putting down his opponents to the point that they are completely neutralized as threats are very high at this point in the story. And tackling the second point is that for as long as One Piece is as a story, we are running out of time to fix this issue. We are in the final saga right now. Like, Imu is here, guys. It is go time. And I've heard a few theories about possibly another time skip occurring after Elbaf, and although not entirely impossible, I do think it is very unlikely, mainly due to the fact that the world of One Piece is incredibly active on its own, and does not just stop for the Straw Hats. In fact, it's usually only after arcs are completed do the Straw Hats find out all the craziness that has happened while they were adventuring at a particular island. So yes, another time skip would definitely help the Straw Hats get stronger, sure, but who knows what horrors Imu and Blackbeard plan on doing during the hypothetical time of training. I can't honestly imagine Emu pumping the brakes now that they've shown up in person. Garp is still Blackbeard's bargaining chip, and Blackbeard is about to make a move against the revolutionaries. There are many issues staring Luffy and the Straw Hats in the face that they really don't have time to put off, or at the very least, issues that they'll need to handle relatively soon rather than spending months to years to get stronger. And Gear 5's significance to the story is just too huge to ever sideline its developments and growth in any capacity. I would be immensely disappointed if we go from this constant need for food over and over again to just a quick snap of the fingers and say, oh yeah, he doesn't have that issue anymore, with no explanation. That would arguably be one of the worst writing decisions Oda would ever make if he were to go that route. You can't emphasize over and over again this problem and then just brush it to the side without properly addressing it. So that begs the question, how do you rectify this issue? How do you get rid of the time limit / need for food? And honestly, based on current information, I can only see Luffy getting past this issue by grinding, because let's be so real here, he's not on Emu's level just yet. Luffy is about to get his butt whooped in Elbaf. Maybe he might be able to get a solid hit off on Emu, or maybe there's some special property about the Nika fruit that counters Emu's devil fruit, similar with how Luffy counters Enel with his rubber body. But from a storytelling perspective, it makes no sense to have your big bad villain pull up in the flesh after being in the background for so long and they don't whoop the main character's butt. I have no reason to believe Emu is going to lose here in Elbaf. He might pull away because of the drawbacks of using his powers outside of Mary Joa. Maybe we'll have to wait and see. But of course, again, it just makes no sense for him to lose to Luffy at this point in time. If Luffy is going to get past this issue and move on to defeating Emu, I'm honestly expecting him to farm XP off of characters like Blackbeard or Kainu or maybe even Shanks. Luffy did say he doesn't mind beating all the Yonko so long as Shanks isn't the first. I could definitely see Shanks testing Luffy's strength since Luffy seems to be a huge part of Shanks' master plan. So long as Shanks doesn't get killed by Blackbeard first, of course, that fight is destined to happen. Throwing Luffy into these high-stakes battles has always been how he's gotten these huge boosts in power. The battles between Katakuri and Kaido being prime examples of what I'm talking about. And although Ray was referring to Haki, it does support the fact that fighting high-level opponents is the key to getting stronger. I know pockets of the community think Luffy is going to just ragdoll people like Akainu or Blackbeard right now because they have placed Gear 5 Luffy on such a giant pedestal, and I'm sorry guys, I just can't see that happening when the man needed Kizaru to deliver him McDonald's just to get up after gassing out. Not only does that not make any sense, but it also just takes away much needed experience to grow via hard fought battles, because Luffy will essentially be left in the same position if he can just easily get past two of his major antagonists. No joke, if that's what you want from the story or that's what you believe will happen, you are denying Luffy the much needed chances to get stronger. Cause I personally would be sad if Luffy doesn't fight Emu one-on-one and overcome him, if we're assuming Emu is the final villain, of course. I don't want to see him need any help, I don't want to see him need to catch his breath mid-fight, or needing a convenient stockpile of food waiting for him the second he runs out of energy. That is so lame, guys, and literally diminishes the overall impact of Emu's downfall in my opinion. Sure, you could argue that the mural depicts Emu getting jumped by Luffy and a bunch of other people, and thus Luffy receiving help mid-battle would have been prophesized to happen. Entirely possible, yes, but in my opinion, it's still incredibly lame overall. No matter what, the longer the issue stays present, the worse it's going to get as we get closer to the final arc. I really want to see Luffy start winning without so many caveats and external factors wiggling its way into all of Luffy's W's. But what do you guys think? Like I said, I wanted to have an honest conversation about the topic, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether you think it's an issue or not, and any takes on how to fix the issue later in the story. Big thanks again to Tiberius for his amazing work on the thumbnail, link to all of his socials in the description. Thanks for watching, and consider subscribing for more in the future. Hope you have a great day, and please stay safe. Peace.